Hello, this is presidential candidate Michael Finley of Santa Clarita, California. I'm a write-in presidential candidate. I do not belong to a political party. I will not belong to a political party, and I do not accept campaign contributions. This is an effort to prove that you can become president of the United States without having to become a political prostitute, receiving huge campaign contributions, and owing big favors, selling your soul to the highest bidder. I refuse to do that. I think it's part of what's wrong with our country. Today I would like to talk to you about one of my platform points that says that the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, need to be repealed because the Constitution allows for us to be protected from criminals and terrorists without them, while actually protecting our constitutional rights. Now, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that said something like that if the people are willing to trade trade freedom for security, they deserve neither and will lose both. If that's not an exact quote, it's very close. That's basically what we've done with the Patriot Act and the NDAA. In the name of having greater security, we've lost an enormous amount of freedom. And it's really kind of silly. Let me tell you a little bit about those things, because a lot of people are so busy with their daily lives, which is understandable. I mean, we have families, we have jobs, we have leisure pursuits that we engage in, our favorite hobbies. And of course, consumerism, where we want to have things and be cool. And so there's a lot of distractions, and a lot of people don't know much about the Patriot Act or the National Defense Authorization Act. They have some pretty darn scary provisions, and some of the things that have already been done with these things is very scary. This is what has basically taken away a lot of the rights that are guaranteed to us under the Constitution and under the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. A big one is the Fourth Amendment, the protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. We talked about that in the last video where we were talking about bringing the spy agencies into strict compliance with the Constitution and international treaties. There's a really frightening thing that we haven't seen much of, at least not publicly in the United States yet, called the indefinite detention provision. And that would allow our government to take anybody who is believed to be a terrorist, take them captive, and hold them indefinitely without ever being told what the charges were against them, without ever being tried for their alleged crime. And this is the kind of thing that is allowing us to still have people held prisoner for over a dozen years that are suspected terrorists that were picked up in other countries that are being held at some of our military facilities as prisoners of war, of the war on terror. These people have been tortured, and that's been proven. They have been waterboarded. They have been, in some cases, raped. They've been subjected to forms of religious torture to force them to be exposed to things that are considered very unholy and unsacred to them and defiling to them. And so it's very psychological and emotional what they're going through. And this has been going on in many cases for 10 to 12 years or more, without ever having these people told why they're prisoners of war, what are the charges against them, ever having a chance to defend themselves. And with the NDAA, this can now be applied to people on the continental United States. I'll give you an example. It is literally within the realm of possibility, the way the laws are worded, that somebody could watch these videos and consider me to be a threat to the system just because I'm espousing ideas and exercising a First Amendment right to share those ideas. And I could be taken captive. My family wouldn't know because I would not be allowed a phone call to call anybody and let them know I've been taken captive. And they could ship me off to one of our facilities, and one of these military facilities offshore, like let's say Guantanamo Bay, and they could subject me to various types of torture and keep me there indefinitely. And even if they didn't torture me, just being imprisoned indefinitely without having a chance to stand up for yourself, to confront witnesses and cross-examine witnesses, to have an attorney represent you, would be pretty horrific. And as far as my family would know, all they knew is I disappeared. They may be searching for my car to have gone off a cliff somewhere or something and wouldn't even know. Because under the National Defense Authorization Act, pretty much the United States is considered now a war zone in the war on terror. So they can take these captives in the war zone and they can give them this type of improper treatment. This has been discussed in appeals, and yet the appellate courts have not overturned this provision. They've just said, well, we don't think it will be applied to people in the mainland United States, but it's certainly allowed to be done. There's nothing to stop them. And since that wasn't the situation of the case being specifically appealed, they really declined to make a ruling on that. This is totally inappropriate and it's totally unnecessary. Let me explain a few things to you. Let me explain what I mean when I say that this kind of misconduct is unnecessary. We're going to use the government's official story of September 11th, 2001. And we're just going to analyze that. Okay, just taking the government's official story. According to the government's official story, there were 19 hijackers, mostly from Saudi Arabia, that hijacked 3 planes, and let's see, 4 planes, and using box cutters to control the planes, and crashed 2 of them into the World Trade Center buildings. At least 2 of the 3 buildings that fell at the World Trade Center that day. Crashed a 3rd one into the Pentagon, and the 4th one crashed outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and that's the official government story. Well, these people had to get here somehow. They actually came, according to the official government story, they came in through immigration, and they obtained visas. They had official visa applications. Most of them, the visa applications, were not even filled out properly. Okay, so this is the situation that became the excuse for the Patriot Act to be enacted, and later on the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA. Okay, well, right on its face on this government story, if the government had only done its job to check their visa applications, these people would have been denied application they would have been denied entry into the United States based on the inadequacy of their applications. We didn't need a whole lot of extra spying in order to stop this incident from happening if it happened the way that the government explains it did. Also, the NSA, or National Security Administration, already had a program in place called Echelon, in which they were scanning all digital communications and searching for specific keywords. Well, flying planes into buildings would have come up as a keyword, I would think, and killing Americans, I think, would have come up. And so they didn't need to take it to the higher level they've taken it to, or maybe we should call it a lower level, and take away more of our rights. Let me tell you something else that doesn't make sense. If I was somebody in charge, And if I wanted to stop terrorists from getting into the country and committing terrorist acts against the people of the country, my number one priority would be to secure our borders and our ports. If instead I wanted to control the population of the country and how they travel and what their rights are, then I would focus more on air travel. Let's look. Yeah, in the United States, we have very unsecure borders. So if terrorists wanted to get into this country and commit horrible acts, they could come right across the Mexican border, right across the Canadian border, which are very porous. Porous meaning there's lots of holes in our security, and do all kinds of harm to us. Our ports are very poorly patrolled, so they could be coming in on container ships shipped into the United States on the East Coast, the eastern seaboard, ports like New York, California seaboard. There's ports down in LA and Long Beach that get huge container ships in regularly. There's even places where they could come in on just a regular boat from Mexico up to the United States, or from, there's plenty of ways in. Those things are very poorly patrolled, and yet we got grandmothers getting felt up by TSAs at airports. That's not protecting us from terrorism. Supposedly the Boston massacre, the Boston Marathon massacre, the bombings there, supposedly the suspects there were making public statements, very public statements, even tweeting about their plans for weeks in advance of the Boston Marathon. So if having the Patriot Act and the NDAA is so wonderful for protecting us, why didn't they stop the bombings? Well, the answer is they're still not doing their job, and those things are not helping us. So what, do we need more spying? Do we need more intrusions on our privacy and our constitutional rights? And these constitutional rights, remember, it's not the Constitution that gives us those rights. We hold those rights and the truths about those rights to be inalienable and self-evident, meaning we don't need a government to say those rights exist. We have those rights because we're human beings. The Constitution is supposed to protect us from the government infringing upon those rights. My rights do not come from the Constitution. Your rights do not come from the Constitution. They come from the fact that we're human beings and we inherently have those rights. So if we're not more secure with those rights taken away, then we need to just restore those rights and expect our spy agencies and our federal law enforcement and our local law enforcement to do their jobs without infringing on our rights the way the Constitution says they're supposed to be done. Again, we shouldn't be trading our freedom for security. We should be ensuring our freedom while working hard to provide security. Again, if our government was doing its job according to their own story, September 11th would never have happened, because all they had to do was follow their own requirements for what's necessary for visas to get into the United States. It doesn't take spying on every American. It doesn't take spying on our allies. It doesn't take laws allowing rape, torture, indefinite detention without an opportunity to be heard and to defend yourself. It's time for this to stop. It's time for you to stop the insanity. It's time for you to stop electing the same Democrats and Republicans that brought us the Patriot Act under George Bush and the NDAA under Barack Obama. Doesn't matter who you elect. if you're going to keep electing the same parties that are taking away your rights. You need somebody who cares about your rights and will fight with his last breath to protect them. That's Michael D. Finley of Santa Clarita, California. Remember that name, write it in on your ballot in 2016. And please, the only thing you can do, if you like what I'm saying, is to share this message. I'm counting on you to help get this word out, because I'm not allowing anybody to pay me money to come up with a great campaign system. I'm shooting these videos on my smartphone and posting them to YouTube and Facebook. I need you to share them. I need you to tweet about them. I need you to tell your friends. I need you to email them to people. Please, let's get the message out. It's the only way that we can have presidents elected that are not political prostitutes. Thank you very much.